And at 8 minutes, I'll just kind of hold it up and we can just keep going. Sound good?
Sounds great. Yeah. Well, here we are. It's nice to see everyone again. So, right, the discussion centers around this case presentation that we have of Colleen. And there are two questions on page 40 that are about the case.
Would you mind reading those questions aloud?
Sure, yeah. So the first question, this case serves to introduce you to some of the dilemmas of psychopharmacology. Carefully discuss each concern with your instructor, or I guess our group, as each will serve as an advance organizer for a unit of the course. Almost every sentence stimulates a potential dilemma. And then the second is, it appears that the use of aripiprazole triggered a negative pharmacodynamic reaction with Colleen. Speculate as to what you think might have happened.
Should we take, do you want to take the first one first?
Yeah.
Sure. Well, this is, says a 45-year-old single woman who suffered from depression for 15 years. That's a long bout of feeling depressive symptoms. And she's been on all kinds of different SSRIs. From fluoxetine to escitalopram, which is, I think, Lexapro. So all SSRIs, and she is still in a depressive mood, anhedonia, lack of direction. So her psychiatrist considers putting her on a low dose of valproate, which is a mood stabilizer, but then decides to put her on aripiprazole and an atypical antipsychotic in a very low dose with an SSRI. So I was really just combing through that chapter 2 to kind of understand more of what's going on here. And I think what's happening is what they're referring to as polypharmacy, which is like a co-therapy of, the SSRI and the antipsychotic. And the part that I have highlighted on page 30 is, thus a drug that mimics the action of serotonin by binding to serotonin receptors may interact differently with different receptor subfamilies. This also has implications for the number of side effects a drug may have. Drugs described as dirty affect several receptors and subfamilies of receptors and have more side effects. The cleaner the drug is, the more focused its action and the fewer its side effects. So I highlighted that because I thought perhaps the desired effect that the co-therapy would be having is actually doing something very different in her system. It was an unexpected kind of side effect of that combination. And then I went forward, I just looked up aripiprazole, and I highlighted then on page 181, sort of skipping ahead to chapter 7, it says that it seems, they talk about this, that sometimes it is used as a mood stabilizer, but the question they have is, why not increase the antidepressant dose, add another antidepressant, or change antidepressants altogether? they say this points to pharmacoeconomic gains more than therapeutic gains. Antipsychotic drugs are increasingly being used for mild mood disorders and insomnia. So I think yeah, I mean, that's sort of my digging into what's going on here.
Mhm.
But I just really have to question, like, what was the impetus for prescribing the aripiprazole instead of the mood stabilizer? And I'm wondering if it has something to do with the marketing of the aripiprazole, if there's some bias that the provider had for using it instead of just another another antidepressant.
Mhm. Aspen,
Yeah.
would you like to kind of chime in, or shall I go? Which do you
for it.
prefer? Yeah? Okay. We have about 2.5 minutes left.
Oh, sorry, I was
So
talking a lot.
no, that's okay. We can keep going past 8 minutes. It was interesting in talking about the dilemmas of this particular case. I even got caught up on dilemmas before getting into the stuff you talked about, Aaron. The part that I was hung up on was, okay, 15 years. This person has tried many different medications, many different SSRIs. So the thing that struck me is, maybe medication or like a biochemical solution isn't necessarily the only solution or the right solution. Maybe there needs to be an attempt at psychotherapy or other kind of holistic or integrative therapeutics. But also maybe the class of SSRIs isn't quite right. Because there was a language that said she and her psychiatrist, their effectiveness diminishes over time. So it may be that it's something about that formulation or her body starts that aspect of upregulation and downregulation where neurons start to adapt to medications by putting more and more receptors or less receptors. So it kind of just, the dilemma that I thought was, it felt like a very similar approach to keep just prescribing various SSRIs. So I thought it was actually kind of interesting to take a different approach and try and do a drug combination, but not without clearly, it was an experiment that she had to suffer the consequences of because it didn't end up going well. So then part of me was like, ooh, maybe we need a second opinion and a different psychiatrist. But that's my skepticism. What do you think, Aspen? What was your take on the dilemmas?
Yeah, I think I similarly was noticing 15 years, many different SSRIs, getting less effective over time with each of them. And I just found myself wondering about like the psychological toll that kind of that takes. Like, and how many eggs people can like put in the basket of psychiatry and like, we're gonna figure this out, we're gonna get the right meds, and that she's been going through this process for a long time. Great. And yeah, so I think in terms of like being her therapist, I would just be like curious about like how to hold that without, while trying not to like interrupt her, like make her like skeptical of like her psychiatrist or anything, but just like holding that there might be some pain there. There might I'm thinking about this like depressive mood, anhedonia, general lack of direction in her life, and like the kind of hopelessness that can come in like wanting to heal this for 15 years, going to this person and just like it nothing really sticking. So that was a lot of what came up for me.
I appreciate that. I guess just like the endurance it takes to keep going at this for 15 years. That's a really good point. Any other dilemmas that we should chat to before moving to the next one?
I don't know. I say, yeah, maybe let's move to the next question. So it appears that the use of aripiprazole triggered a negative pharmacodynamic reaction with choline, speculate as to what you think might have happened. Oh, I suppose I gave my
Yeah, maybe you
sense on that one.
yeah.
Thank you for doing the digging on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, I do yeah, I do wonder about whether she is in, it didn't mention whether she is in any other kind of
Mhm.
care, whether she's in therapy, really
Mhm.
looking at the underlying, the underlying sort of the pain that she's endured, maybe that is causing all of these symptoms of her depressive mood. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for bringing that in.
Totally. I didn't think it didn't occur to me that the way when I heard you talk about it, Aspen, I was thinking, oh, like as though we were her psychotherapist enduring. I was thinking of it as more like a case like presentation. So, and when I was reading it, I was assuming there wasn't actually psychotherapeutic support. But if there were, it seems like there might be worth kind of zooming out and trying to understand context more, because the psychiatrist, we don't know what they're doing. There sounds like they're trying to understand the biochemical reaction to these psychotropics, but maybe what we could do as therapists is understand what are the contextual like things around her, where, what are the stressors in her life? Maybe she's in a relationship or her home environment or something that, like, despite her body and mind potentially even having some initial benefit of the medication, continues to feel constrained. And it's like, because of whatever her situation is, it might be that might be a massive contributing factor to the enduring feelings of hopelessness and anhedonia.
Yeah.
Anything to add on you? I'm just looking and reading.
I feel satisfied.
Yeah. I feel like we need to end these with like a quote or like a dance move or something fun. But maybe not. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Awesome. Oh, that's great. All right.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for this discussion. Okay.